Everyone, myself Anand Sakti. I welcome all of you at my YouTube channel. Friends, in my last session, I had discussed regarding some of the salient features of Indian Constitution. Today, I will move ahead. In the last session, I had discussed some salient features like our Constitution is one of the lengthiest written constitution of the world. Our constitution is neither rigid nor flexible, but it is a synthesis of both. And I had also discussed that ours is a federal government but with a unitary bias. Today I am coming to the fifth point. Our constitution has adopted parliamentary form of government. This parliamentary form of government, this is also known as Westminster model of government, or it is also called as cabinet government or responsible government. This parliamentary form of government, this provision is given in our constitution. There are some countries which have parliamentary system like Britain, whereas some countries like America, they have adopted presidential system of government. So now let us have a look what are the essential features of both these types of government, that is parliamentary system of government and presidential system of government. In our country, we have a parliamentary system of government. In a parliamentary system of government, there is a majority party rule, and we know that the government or the administration has three organs: the legislature, executive and judiciary. In a parliamentary system of governance, there is a cooperation and coordination. I have written here, there is a cooperation and coordination between legislature and executive. Both help each other and they coordinate in their works. Whereas in a presidential system of government, there is separation of power between legislature and executive. All the three organs are completely independent of each other, that is legislature, executive and judiciary. Whereas in our case, legislature and executive are cooperative and coordinating each other, while judiciary is independent. Another important point of this government is that in parliamentary system, executive, what does it mean? Executive simply means prime minister, council of ministers and the other civil servants. They are called as executive. They are responsible to whom? They are responsible for their actions to legislature. Their collective responsibility is to legislature, that is parliament. They are accountable to parliament, legislature. And in presidential system of government, the executive is not accountable to the legislature. So we can see the difference here between the two system of government. Another point is that in a parliamentary system, the executive I have said earlier, prime minister, council of ministers and is divided into two parts, that is I have written in short HOS, head of a state and head of government. Head of a state and head of government. There in a parliamentary system, the head of a state is president and head of government is prime minister. But we know that head of government, actually he enjoys the real power in a parliamentary system. The head of a state, president, is only nominal power. The actual power lies with the head of government. But there is no any such thing in presidential system of government. There is president is the chief executive. In a presidential system, the head of state and head of government is the same person. So, there lies the difference between the two, that in a parliamentary system of government, the head of state and head of government are different, and head of government enjoys the real power, that is prime minister, whereas in a presidential system, president is the president enjoys the real power, he is the chief executive. Now coming to another point, in a parliamentary system of government, in order to become a minister, the person must have to be a member of the legislature, he must have to be a member of parliament, only then he can be a minister. But in a presidential system of government, even persons outside from legislatures, they can also become a minister in a presidential system. Another important point is that in a parliamentary system, the Lok Sabha or the lower house can be dissolved by prime minister, but there is no such provision in case of presidential system of government. Another important thing is that in case of parliamentary system, the tenure of executive, that is the tenure of prime minister, is not fixed. But in case of presidential system, the tenure or the president enjoys a fixed term. So these are some differences between the both system of government. Also, in a parliamentary system, the elections can be held at any time. There is fixed schedule, but the elections can be held at any time, periodic elections. But in a presidential system of government, elections have a fixed schedule. So these are some of the differences. We have a parliamentary form of government. Another important feature of our Indian Constitution is that we have parliamentary sovereignty and judicial supremacy. The doctrine of parliamentary sovereignty, it has been inspired from British Constitution, while this doctrine of judicial supremacy, we have taken it from American Constitution. Now what is parliamentary sovereignty and what we mean by judicial supremacy? In our country, who is sovereign, who is considered to be sovereign, who have the power to amend provisions of constitution? It is parliament. So parliament is considered as a sovereign body because it can amend provisions of constitution. At the same time, we have judicial supremacy. Judicial supremacy means that the judiciary has the power to declare the laws of parliament as constitutional or unconstitutional. So there is a balance between the power of parliament and the power of judiciary. Judiciary, through its power of judicial review, it can declare any laws made by parliament as constitutional or unconstitutional. While parliament has the power to make law on any subjects, it has also the power to make any amendment to the constitution. Another important point of our constitution is that we have a integrated and independent judiciary system. Our judiciary is both independent as well as integrated. Now let us try to understand what does this word mean, integrated. It means that there is Supreme Court at the top, at the national level there is a Supreme Court, and Supreme Court is considered as the interpreter of the highest interpreter of our constitution, and below Supreme Court there is High Court at the state level, and under the High Court there are other courts like district courts, lower courts, subordinate courts. So this is the system. Supreme Court is at the top at the national level, and there are high courts for all the states. They have their own high courts, and below high courts there are number of other courts. So this is the system. This is known as integrated judiciaries. Whereas the term independent judiciary, we mean to say that by independent judiciary we mean to say that the judges of the Supreme Court or High Court, they enjoy security of tenure, that is their tenure are fixed. Also they have a fixed service conditions, and their conduct, the conduct of judges can't be discussed in parliament or legislature. Also by the term independent we mean to say that judiciary is completely independent from executive. Judiciary decision are completely independent, and executive have no any role to interfere in the work of judiciary. So this is the point. I hope it is clear to you. Independent and integrated and independent judiciary. Next point is fundamental rights. Our constitution has guaranteed to us 6 fundamental rights, and these are the rights which promote the idea of political democracy. Originally in our constitution we had 7 fundamental rights, but one fundamental right, that is right to property, it was later on deleted by 44th Constitutional Amendment Act 1978. So today we have 6 fundamental rights. They are right to equality, right to freedom, which are in Article 19 to 22, right against exploitation from deal in Article 23 and 24, right to freedom of religion, right cultural and educational rights, right to constitutional remedies. So these are set of 6 fundamental rights which are guaranteed to us by our constitution. And the special or the unique thing about these fundamental rights is that they are justiciable. Justiciable, I mean to say that in case of violation of our fundamental right, we can directly approach to the Supreme Court that our fundamental rights has been violated. So this is one of the very important thing with regard to fundamental rights. But we must remember that we enjoy fundamental right, but fundamental rights are not absolute. Absolute, I mean to say that fundamental rights are not absolute. They are also sometimes cancelled, or they are sometimes restricted. They are subjected to reasonable restrictions. For example, we have right to freedom given to us, right to freedom of speech and expression, but we can't criticize court due to this our right to freedom of speech and expression. So there are some reasonable restrictions imposed to us. So, and regarding this fundamental right, we will read it in detail, all these rights. We will explain it, I will explain it in my next session. So this is all about the fundamental right. Another point is fundamental duties. Apart from fundamental rights which have been guaranteed to us by our constitution, we have some fundamental duties also. Means we not only we have to enjoy fundamental rights, but being a citizen of this country, we should also remember what are our duties, and our duties are called as fundamental duties, and they are total 11 in numbers. Earlier we had only 10 fundamental duties, but later on one more fundamental duty was added, and so in total we have 11 fundamental duties, and these fundamental duties are mentioned in part 4A of our constitution. Now the difference between fundamental rights and fundamental duties is that whereas fundamental rights are justiciable, that is in case of violations of our fundamental rights, we can approach to Supreme Court. But fundamental duties are non-justiciable. We can't approach to courts in case of violation. And another important thing for the purpose of our examination is that these fundamental duties was not a part of our constitution originally. Later on it was included during 1975, the 1975-1977 with the recommendation of Swaran Singh committee. This was the committee made, and on the recommendation of this committee, these fundamental duties was incorporated in our constitution. So friends, this was all about the important salient features of our Indian constitution. I hope I was able to deliver you the point. Thank you. Thanks for watching.